liberal country when around we are only non-liberal countries like Hungary, like Russia, like Turkey?
Well, I mean, if you want to remain a liberal country, I can't understand why your former Prime Minister, Mr. Erdogan, agreed to set up a mega mosque, which is only 15 minutes drive from the American embassy. You know, I hear very little outcry among Mr. Plesh, who is an exception, and Adevărul, but you know, about this step. I don't think Romania has very close ties with the neighbours. It was the hope of the EU visionaries that you would have a region of peace and friendship and active cooperation. But, you know, there is still mistrust. So, you know, if the neighbours are choosing unwise populist leaders, it probably doesn't have much of a kind of spillover effect on Romania. I mean, politically at the moment, Romania is blocked. There is no, you know, there is no advance of negative forces. There is no advance of progressive forces. You are stuck. Now, this will not last indefinitely, but you know, your own. Just to repeat what I said, your future, your destiny is yours alone.
Radu, the same question: how Romania have to do in these times?
I think we're in a way reached a tipping point. It may be the fact that I'm a bit biased because I'm born and raised in Bucuresti and I travel quite a lot. So, but I've also been going around the country in different cities and also partly some villages. I think that people are becoming tired, not to say sick and tired, of some of the attitude that they've been seeing the past 25, 26. But I think we have a very, let's say, loud minority which acts for the, let's say, for the Western side and tries to help as much as possible the modernization of the country. You can see that mobilization online periodically, sometimes also doubled by protests in the streets. But I think that the country as a majority is still a pretty passive one. Of course, in any country, I believe that's the case. I think that's also the role for political elites and social economic elites to come and push forward and get the proper mechanism in place so that the country can go forward. What I can say in terms of mentality and attitude, because we're also speaking about Brexit in the European Union, I think we're starting to change that. And I think we're starting to become more of a player back in Brussels as well. Still not local, not in the sense that, for example, normally we tend to compare ourselves with neighbors from the Eastern Bloc. So clearly Romania is not Poland in terms of being local. And I compare Romania with Poland from the Tusk and Sikorski times and so on. So we're not there yet in terms of international messaging, but I think we're starting to, let's say, have a more proper attitude back in Brussels, not the mentality of a candidate, the mentality of a proper member states. I think we're, in terms of foreign policy and regional policy, I agree with the assessments that Professor Gallagher did earlier. I think that honestly, our only privileged relationship is the one with Moldova, that we're trying to grow and we're trying to manage as best as possible. Separate from that, I believe that Romania is on the right track. The very fact that we're starting not to take some things for granted, the fact that you can hear people fight, let's say, for Western values and for the very fact that we try to get into EU, NATO, and periodically, whenever some gang of MPs tries in the parliament, you know, to change criminal legislation, suddenly you have an outcry. I think that's good. I think we're sane, and I think that this struggle is something natural because we're still in the transition process. But this transition process, together with the DNA, I think will be successful in the next 2-3 years. We're actually going to have a nice, stable, and prosperous country.
Do you think Romania can remain a liberal country?
I think we're partly liberal in the sense we're economically liberal, but I think in terms of mentality, we still have to work quite a lot. From things like LGBT to things, let's say, progressive ideals. And I think we need, let's say, a renewed push from civil society from this perspective, and we need more liberal-minded politicians, whether we're talking to the left or to the right. And there's been quite a lot of hope going on about new people taking over the reins of Romanian politics. But the truth is, we have to stand to identify, let's say, some good quality people and help them build their credentials and help them become better. Because if I'll give a continental example this time, not a British example. Normally the British elites come from Oxford, but if you look, Romania has been taking a lot of, let's say, examples during its history, more from France than from Germany, UK, and USA, and so on. And if you look at French politics has its faults, but the majority of French politicians are already connected and still know pretty well what to do once in administration or in government, because they have been schooled initially at the École Nationale d'Administration. And I think we need a proper ENA. I think we can do a proper ENA. I think there's a lot of talent in Romania and abroad, a lot of good quality people who can help the future politicians. But again, I believe it's a decade's investment. And I think it's worth it. I think we should start now. Why? Because education does not show immediate results. So the fact that we can school now part of the political elites can come and take over in 2020, 2024, and so on, I think it's a worth investment. And in the meantime, there is no miracle, just a transitional political class in between 2016 and 2020.
Thank you, Radu. And okay, yep, thank you. And Ms. Ambassador, we are at the end of our debate, and the conclusions are for you.
Oh gosh. Well, I think in a very real sense, I think in a very real sense, the conclusion is for the British voters on the 23rd of June, because then we'll find out what happens. And I think, as I say, the UK government's view is that the UK's place is in a reformed EU, and that makes us that's true because in a reformed EU we're better off with access to the single market of 500 million people. We're safer because we can work with our European Union partners on the important challenges around combating organised crime, combating terrorism, and we're stronger because a UK voice is amplified by the voices of 27 like-minded states, and we're seeing the positive effects of that in all sorts of ways, whether it is countering the concerns around Russian aggression in Ukraine, whether it is combating the threat of Ebola in West Africa, or whether it was coming to a deal on climate change in the Paris summit in December. But of course, the UK is a democracy, and it's right that this is a decision. It's an important issue, and it's a right that it is a decision for the British people to make on the 23rd of June. Could I have a final sentence? And it will just be one sentence. As a way of organising national cooperation across borders, the EU is how not to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you again, Mr. Vladimir Valki, the Ambassador of the Czech Republic in Romania. Thank you, Mr. Paul Brenner, Ambassador of UK. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you, Radu Magdin. And now I invite you to watch the documentary. Thank you.
First, there's going to be a series of questions from the public. So, who has questions to ask?
For the questions?
Please.
For the panel members, do you foresee a possible split? Western Europe continue as a kind of mini EU, Northern European states versus Visegrad combined with Southeastern Europe, and Austria then being part of, let's say, the new Eastern European EU. Do you see developments like this in the future?
Well, if there is no purposeful lead from the centre, if there is a series of nervous, short-term, jerky reactions to unexpected events, then it's likely that centrifugal tendencies, such as the ones that you outlined there, will occur.
I think the only point I'd make to that is that the European Union is 28 nation states, certainly the United Kingdom's view is that for a durable and successful European Union, it's really important that the institutions and structures of the EU are set up in order to be able to give the organisation flexibility. If you've got 28 members, there's bound to be different perspectives on all sorts of issues, and that's why David Cameron focused so strongly on economic governance. He focused so strongly on making sure that the European Union going forward is a broad enough house to be able to accommodate states that want to be deeper and deeper integrated or in the Eurozone and want to develop that, states that aren't in the Eurozone and want to join, and states like the UK, which are very happy outside the Eurozone and have no intention of joining.
Radu?
Thank you.
About the question?
The question, because I haven't heard it initially.
Do you foresee a possible a division between Eastern Europe and Western Europe?
No, I don't. I think that we're more likely to divide ourselves on a north-south basis than on a west-east basis. Also in terms of security challenges, also in terms of particularly looking at the refugee crisis, also in terms of the approach to the Eurozone, but I don't think we're going to get into territorial issues. If like two European unions, the northern one, the southern one, or the western one, and the eastern one.
Hello, Claudia Postolincescu is my name. Question for Professor Gallagher first. You said that you don't think European Union has now legitimacy, and I didn't understand your main argument, and why you are so much against globalization from a political point of view. What I'm thinking about is the failure to have a common migration policy and dealing with the refugee crisis is because the states don't want to have EU law internalized on this issue. And the question for the rest of the speakers, or all of them, is the Brexit somehow a way of Britain to make way for more, status within European Union, because UK opted out from Schengen from security reasons, and I don't think it was such a bad choice, in my personal opinion. It opted out from a common asylum system, so they have their own rules dealing with migration, and now they are negotiating, in the context of Brexit discussion, some other more special status. It's just a way of making politics within EU to gain a better role, or do you really want to get out of European Union? Thank you in advance.
Yes, sorry, it was an emergency. Sorry, other questions?
The EU is not effective even in the areas where people recognise its legitimacy, such as the trading area. I mean, the EU has a terrible track record in securing free trade agreements with other countries, and Britain is very rarely the one that objects. It's the smaller countries that object and who delay the process for years and years. I mean, we have the TTIP standoff with the United States, and I think there are grounds for reservations about that, which, if it goes through, is going to be a huge breakthrough for globalization forces. It will allow corporations to have major autonomy from national laws, override parliaments. I think it's a very ominous development. But I ask myself, why are EU bureaucrats so much in favor of this? And my answer is because really, one of the aspects of the EU is it's a de-democratization project.
I think it was the second question was for me there, which if I understood the question correctly, it was really whether whether actually the referendum is a bit of a negotiating ploy. Not at all. I mean, the referendum is a decision. If the British people vote on 23 June to remain in the European Union, then we will remain in the European Union. If the British people vote on 23 June to leave, then we will leave. So it is a democratic choice, a real election, a real referendum. So it's certainly not a negotiating ploy.
Good afternoon. My name is Levent Kader. I am a Crimean Tatar. I'm also very proud being Romanian. Today it's exactly 72 years from Stalin's deportation. So I have only a short question after this introduction. Do you think if this issue of the union could make the union stronger in the future? And I want to thank you for the opportunity to meet you, and I want to thank you to the organizers.
I think, yes, thanks for the question. And I think that's certainly the hope of the UK government. I think when we embarked on the renegotiation process, it was our clear view that there were areas in which the EU needed to reform, not just because the UK wanted that to happen, but because this was also better for the EU as a whole. So sorting out the whole issue of economic governance, really focusing on jobs and growth, the kind of issues that actually matter to people in the European Union, really tackling the excessive bureaucracy which is turning so many people off of the EU project. All of these things are really good things to do which help strengthen the European Union in the long term, and that in turn means, for example, a European Union which is able to provide a much stronger, more consistent voice addressing key global challenges, including all sorts of challenges around Russian aggression in the space of Ukraine and parts of the former Soviet Union.
Of course, I sympathise with the plight of the Crimean Tatars, and at least after Saturday's result of the Eurovision Song Contest, you are more in the forefront of people's minds than you have ever been, perhaps in the last 72 years. But I don't think the referendum in my country is going to have a major impact on your sad situation.
Radu, are you together with us?
I'm with you, but I can only hear the speakers, but I can't really hear the questions. So kind request to repeat the question.
If after this referendum, European Union will be stronger.
I doubt it. I think that the very signal, that somebody has doubts about basically a referendum about the country staying in and out is interpreted by the others as a lack of trust in the common project, no matter the reasons for political or internal political agendas. So I think that it can't make the EU stronger. It can't for sure at least keep the EU intact, because all the parties who may be, in case of a Brexit, looking for a momentum in their own countries for referendum, all these parties will not have the respective momentum. So I think it will not mean that suddenly everything is going to be like Olympus back in Brussels, everything is going to be great, and so on, but at least we'll have a strong player, the second economy in the EU, strongly back at the EU table.
So thank you, Radu. Other questions, please?
My question is in two parts. How long will the European Union survive? And will Turkey join before it ceases to exist?
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
I think the European Union,